the Indiana Fever established a new WNBA rating standard.
The second most watched WNBA regular season game in 30 years didn't happen in the finals. It didn't happen in the playoffs. It happened on a Tuesday night in the middle of the regular season, and it averaged 2 million viewers. Today, we're breaking down the Indiana Fever's record-setting ratings, what's actually driving these numbers beyond the obvious answer, and what it could mean for the WNBA's future, including some genuinely wild projections for what the playoffs might look like. I've got someone here who has been deep in this data, and I want to start with the number that stopped me cold: 2 million viewers on a Tuesday. Walk me through what we're actually looking at.
So let's set the scene. The Indiana Fever played the New York Liberty, and that game averaged 2 million viewers and peaked at 2.4 million, according to ESPN. That makes it the second most watched WNBA regular season game in 30 years. That alone is a headline.
30 years. That's not a small window.
Not at all. But here's the thing, that game against the Liberty isn't even the most impressive data point from this recent stretch. The week before, the Fever averaged 2.6 million viewers in their game against the Chicago Sky, which peaked at 3.1 million viewers. And then there was the August 2nd game against the Minnesota Lynx on ABC that averaged 2.5 million.
Wait, so we're talking about 3 separate games, all clearing 2 million average viewers?
Consistently. And that word, consistently, is the key. The article from Women's Fast Break on SI makes this exact point. While the Fever reached that 2 million viewer level during several contests last season, they're now doing so consistently and in the middle of the regular season, when interest is typically at more of a lull.
Right, because mid-season is when you'd expect viewership to dip. People are busy, there's no playoff urgency, it's just a regular Tuesday.
Exactly. And that's what makes this a benchmark rather than a blip. It's not a one-off spike because of a marquee matchup or a special broadcast. It's becoming the floor.
Okay, so let's talk about the Chicago Sky game specifically, because you flagged that as the most impressive one. Why that game over the Liberty or the Lynx?
Because the New York Liberty and the Minnesota Lynx are both strong competitive teams. You can make an argument that those matchups carry their own draw. But Chicago? The article specifically describes the Sky as not an elite or star-studded team. And yet that game pulled 2.6 million average viewers and peaked at 3.1 million.
So it's not just about who the Fever are playing. The Fever themselves are the draw.
That's exactly the argument. And it matters enormously for how we think about the league's growth. If the ratings only spiked for marquee matchups, you could write it off as circumstantial. But when a game against a non-elite team is pulling those numbers in the middle of the regular season, that's a structural shift in viewership.
Structural shift. I like that framing. So what's driving it? I mean, the obvious answer is Caitlin Clark, but is it more complicated than that?
It's definitely more complicated. And actually, there's a data point that complicates the "it's all Caitlin Clark" narrative in a really interesting way. Last postseason, the Fever played the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA semifinals. That series averaged about 1.55 million viewers per game across 5 games, making it the most watched WNBA playoff series outside the finals in over 25 years.
Okay, that's already impressive. But what's the complication?
Caitlin Clark missed that entire series because of an injury. She wasn't on the court for any of it.
Wait, what? So the most watched WNBA playoff series outside the finals in 25 years happened without the player everyone says is driving all the interest?
Without her. Which tells you that the Fever as a team, the storylines around them, the drama of that series against the Aces, all of it had its own gravitational pull. The team has drawing power that extends beyond any single player.
That's actually a healthier sign for the league long term, right? Because if it were purely one player, you'd be one injury away from the whole thing collapsing.
Exactly. And the injury concern is real. We saw it play out last postseason. But the fact that the numbers held up even without Clark suggests there's something bigger happening. The WNBA has built genuine momentum, and the Fever are at the center of it.
Alright, so let's talk about what this all points toward, because the playoff projections here are kind of mind-bending.
So here's the baseline. Last season's WNBA finals averaged about 1.5 million viewers. The article from Women's Fast Break on SI calls that an impressive metric, and it is. But then it says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that number would be blown out of the water if Clark and the Fever made it to the finals.
Blown out of the water. That's a strong phrase.
And it's backed up by the math. If the Fever are consistently averaging 2 million viewers in regular season games right now, and the Fever Aces semifinals series averaged 1.55 million without Clark, The article argues that if those two teams met in the postseason with Clark active, an average of at least 3 million viewers would not only be attainable, but likely.
3 million for a WNBA game in the postseason.
And that's a conservative projection based on what we're already seeing in the regular season. The article specifically says to expect a historical level of interest among not only women's basketball fans, but the mainstream sports world if the Fever make a deep run.
Mainstream sports world, that's the phrase that jumps out to me. Because there's a difference between growing your existing fan base and actually crossing over into the broader sports conversation.
And that crossover is what these ratings are signaling. 2 million viewers on a Tuesday night in the regular season isn't just a WNBA story anymore. That's a sports story.
Okay, I want to bring in something that happened around the Fever Aces game because I think it actually illustrates something important about where the league is right now. The Fever lost that game 86-84 in a 2-point nail-biter, and there was a controversial officiating call that became a whole thing.
Yeah, the blocking foul call. So during the game, officials called a defensive blocking foul on the Fever, ruling that the defender made body contact against Aja Wilson using her hip while sliding laterally rather than establishing a legal guarding position. The Fever challenged it, the refs upheld it, citing hip-to-hip body contact. And then the Aces won by 2, with Wilson scoring 28 points.
And Aaliyah Boston had a strong game personally, 21 points, 12 rebounds, but the loss stung, especially with that call.
Right. And what happened after is interesting. Boston went on Candace Parker's Post Moves YouTube channel, and Parker asked her directly about the call. Boston's response was pretty blunt. She said, "Hip to hip. That's not a real call. We're not being serious." And then she added, "I'm not trying to get in trouble or anything."
That "I'm not trying to get in trouble" qualifier is doing a lot of work there.
It really is. And Parker, who was actually on the broadcast during the game, pushed back a little. She said it depends on whether the defender's hip is initiating the contact. But she also said on the broadcast that she thought it was the Fever's ball. So even the commentator in the moment wasn't sure the call was right.
And this kind of controversy, close games, disputed calls, star players speaking out, that's exactly the kind of drama that drives mainstream sports viewership. It's not separate from the ratings story, it's part of it.
That's a really sharp observation. The ingredients that make sports compelling, competitive games, controversial moments, players with strong personalities who speak their minds, the WNBA has all of that right now. And the Fever are at the epicenter.
So let me push back on something slightly, because I think it's worth acknowledging. All of this is contingent on the Fever actually making a deep playoff run, right? The article is pretty clear that the Fever need to reach the finals for the biggest numbers to materialize.
Absolutely. And that's the honest caveat. The article says, of course, the Fever need to reach the finals in the first place for this to even matter. The projections are exciting, but they're projections. The team still has to perform.
And Clark staying healthy is a big variable too, given what happened last postseason.
Huge variable. The article specifically frames the 3 million viewer projection around Clark being active and performing up to her potential. Those are two conditions that have to be met simultaneously. Last year, we saw what happens when one of them isn't.
Right. And yet, even with that caveat, 1.55 million viewers per game in a playoff series without your biggest star is still the most watched WNBA playoff series outside the finals in over 25 years. That's the floor.
That's the floor. And the ceiling, if everything breaks right, is something the league has genuinely never seen before.
Let's talk about what this means for the league more broadly, because the Fever's ratings don't exist in a vacuum. What does it actually change for the WNBA as an institution?
So the most direct implication is leverage. When you can demonstrate consistent 2 million viewer averages in the regular season, that changes conversations around broadcast deals, sponsorships, and expansion. Advertisers and networks pay attention to sustained viewership, not just peaks.
And the consistency piece keeps coming back. It's not just that they hit 2 million once, it's that they're doing it repeatedly, in different matchups, against different opponents.
Exactly. And the article frames it precisely that way. The fact that Indiana is consistently hitting an average of 2 million viewers in their nationally televised games is a benchmark that further proves their superior drawing power. That word, benchmark, is important. It sets a new standard for what's possible.
A new standard. And standards, once set, tend to shift expectations permanently.
That's the long game here. If the WNBA can point to the Fever's numbers and say, this is what our product can deliver, It fundamentally changes the league's negotiating position and its cultural standing.
And there's something almost poetic about the fact that Caitlin Clark's 2024 rookie season is described as having changed the WNBA forever. That's literally how the article frames it, and now we're watching the second-year effect play out in real time.
The sophomore surge. And what's interesting is that the rookie season set the stage, but the consistency we're seeing now suggests this isn't a novelty effect wearing off. If anything, the audience is growing more engaged, not less.
Which is the opposite of what skeptics predicted. There was always this argument that the interest was a curiosity spike that would fade.
And the data is pushing back hard on that argument. Mid-regular season games averaging 2 million viewers is not a curiosity spike. That's a sustained audience.
Okay, I want to zoom out for a second because I think there's a question worth sitting with. Is this the Indiana Fever's moment, or is this the WNBA's moment? And does the distinction matter?
It matters a lot, actually. Because if it's purely the Fever's moment, then the league's growth is fragile. It's tied to one team's success and one player's health. But if the Fever are serving as a gateway that's bringing new viewers into the broader WNBA ecosystem, then the rising tide lifts all boats.
And the semifinals numbers without Clark suggest it might be the latter.
That's the most optimistic reading of the data. The Fever drew 1.55 million viewers per game in a playoff series without their marquee player. That means some portion of that audience was there for the basketball, for the competition, for the WNBA itself, not just for one name.
And that's the version of this story that has real staying power.
Exactly. The Fever are the entry point, but if the league is smart about it, they're converting those viewers into WNBA fans broadly, not just Fever fans.
Let me bring it back to the officiating controversy for a second, because I think it connects to something you said about drama driving viewership. When Aaliyah Boston goes on Candace Parker's channel and says, "That's not a real call," that moment gets clipped, it gets shared, it gets debated. That's the kind of content that lives beyond the game itself.
It's the ecosystem around the game, and the WNBA is building that ecosystem in real time. You've got players with platforms, you've got former players like Candace Parker doing media, you've got controversial moments that generate conversation. That's the infrastructure of a league that people are genuinely invested in.
And the Fever losing that game 86-84 on a disputed call, that's a story. That's something people talk about. It's not just a box score.
Right. And Parker's nuanced take on the call, saying it depends on who's initiating the contact, shows that even the commentary around these games is getting more sophisticated. The discourse is maturing alongside the viewership.
Okay, so here's where I want to land before we wrap up. We've talked about the regular season numbers, the playoff projections, the team's drawing power beyond any single player, and the broader cultural moment the WNBA is in. When you step back from all of it, what's the actual headline?
The headline is that the WNBA has a new floor. The Indiana Fever have demonstrated that 2 million viewers in the regular season isn't a ceiling to aspire to, it's a baseline to build from. And that changes everything about how we think about the league's trajectory.
A new floor. And the ceiling is still being discovered.
Exactly. If the Fever make a deep playoff run with Clark healthy, the article suggests we could be looking at numbers the league has genuinely never seen. 3 million viewers per game in a playoff series. A finals that blows past last season's 1.5 million average. Those aren't fantasy projections, they're extrapolations from what's already happening.
And the stakes couldn't be higher, because this is the moment where the WNBA either capitalizes on this momentum or lets it slip.
That's the real pressure. The audience is showing up. The question is whether the league, the teams, and the broadcast partners can meet that audience with a product and an experience that keeps them coming back. Not just for the Fever, but for the whole league.
So here's what this really comes down to. The Indiana Fever aren't just having a good ratings run, they're rewriting what's possible for women's professional basketball in America. 3 games, all averaging over 2 million viewers, in the middle of the regular season, a playoff series that drew 1.55 million per game without their biggest star, and projections for postseason numbers that would be genuinely historic.
And the through line across all of it is consistency. Not a spike, not a moment, a sustained, growing audience that's showing up for the Fever and, increasingly, for the WNBA itself. That's the story. That's what makes this different from previous surges of interest that faded.
And the Aaliyah Boston moment, going on Candace Parker's channel and saying, "That's not a real call after a 2-point loss," that's a reminder that the drama, the controversy, the human stakes of competition are all part of what's drawing people in. It's not just star power, it's a league that feels alive.
A league that feels alive. That's exactly it. And when a league feels alive, the viewers follow.
So what should people watching this unfold actually pay attention to going forward?
Watch the consistency, not the peaks. Anyone can have a big game. The question is whether the Fever keep hitting that 2 million average as the season progresses, and whether the playoff numbers, if they get there, reflect the trajectory we're already seeing. That's the real test of whether this is a structural shift or a very exciting moment that eventually levels off.
And watch the games that don't feature the Fever. Because if the broader WNBA viewership is rising alongside Indiana's numbers, that's the sign that the gateway is working.
That's the metric that would tell you the WNBA has genuinely turned a corner. Not just one team's ratings, but a rising baseline across the league.
30 years is a long time for a benchmark to stand. The fact that it fell on a Tuesday night in the middle of the regular season against a team that isn't even a title contender tells you everything about where the Indiana Fever, and maybe the WNBA, are right now. The moment is here. Whether it becomes a movement is the question worth watching.